So, over the weekend, the Justice Department designated 3 cities as anarchist cities and is threatening to pull their federal funding. The cities are, rather predictably, New York City, Portland, Oregon, and Seattle, Washington. Now, you might imagine that the mayors of all 3 of these cities are not thrilled with this designation for, no other reason than if they lose their federal funding, they're probably going to be royally effed because the way they're running their cities is causing the residents of those cities to leave for greener pastures and taking their tax dollars with them. But let's just put that aside for a moment. Mayor Jenny Durkan of Seattle is taking particular issue with this, sending out a couple of tweets just yesterday. The Trump administration's threats to defund Seattle, Portland, and New York are gross misuse of federal power and blatantly unlawful. And I don't think that that's true, Jenny, and I think you know that that's not true. You are not entitled to federal dollars when you are not actually doing the things that your city should be doing to not only protect the citizens, but frankly also protect federal flipping property. Trump, the Department of Justice, and Barr's obsession with Seattle and me is irrational and, more importantly, a huge distraction. Now, if someone like Jenny Durkan actually thinks that Trump is so obsessed with her that is the only reason he's doing any of this, that's narcissism. That's like narcissism in action right there. There's no other way to put it. In Seattle, we'll remain focused on addressing the 4 crises in front of us. The COVID-19 pandemic, an unprecedented economic turndown, the greatest civil rights reckoning in decades, and the continued threat of climate change. Well, I think that Seattle is a particularly interesting case because I'm actually completely in favor of defunding all these cities, and I am particularly in favor of defunding the city of Seattle for a couple of reasons. Number one, they've shown us that they are not really good at investing the resources that they have, especially when they're really doubling down on this critical race theory training for its employees. Remember, it was the city of Seattle. I've talked about it on this channel. It was the city of Seattle that we first discovered was actually doing segregated training for its employees, where white employees were required to use a vacation day to go into this day-long training and told that they're racist, and people of color who are employees of the city of Seattle were doing completely separate training. Now, because this is a city training, that means that the residents of Seattle are paying for it, or maybe the federal money's paying for it too. Like, who the heck knows? I don't have access to their budget, but basically, like, taxpayers are paying for literally segregated training. So that's the first issue I have. But there's a much more fun issue that's just come out. According to the New York Post, Seattle pays ex-pimp $150,000 to offer alternatives to policing. Yep. No, I don't want them having my federal money either. I don't want them having tax dollars. No. Seattle, Jenny Durkan, you're losing your privileges. No. Now, okay, honestly, my hope is that Trump is using this as more of like a stick to threaten the cities in hopes that they actually kind of fall back in line. Listen, we've seen in cities like Lancaster, Pennsylvania is a perfect example of this. Lancaster had like one night of rioting. They arrested the people who were rioting. They set really high bail. And guess what? The rioting stopped because they didn't want to go to jail. Now, Seattle, Portland, New York City, they're ignoring people who are breaking the law. They are refusing to prosecute people who are breaking the law. Like, at some point, you lose your flippin' privileges. And when you're paying $150,000 to a literal pimp to offer you advice on policing, I mean, come on. Like, really? Okay. If anyone in any normal organization did stuff like this, they would be fired immediately. Let's just be realistic for a second. So here's the deal. We're going to read this article and we're going to talk about what I think it means. But first, guys, I need you to do me a favor. See, this will be my 3rd video that I posted today. I'm also going to be doing a live stream at 9:30 tonight with Joshua and Mikey Harlow. We're going to talk about Supreme Court stuff. But this will be the 3rd video I posted today because YouTube is epically screwing with my channel. Now, right before this one, I posted a video about how YouTube is getting sued by its own employees. And I predicted in that video that they would demonetize it in about 2 hours and then come up with some crazy excuse 3 days later for why that video is roughly equivalent to a modern act of terror. And they demonetized it within 1 hour and 45 minutes. A story about YouTube getting sued has already been demonetized. And so listen, guys, they are screwing my channel. It is actually impacting the revenue that I'm bringing in. There's not dire straits or anything. There's no emergency. But I do need your help to kind of counterbalance what YouTube is doing. They're unsubscribing people from my channel. They're suppressing my content. They're wrongfully demonetizing content. I need your help, guys. If you like what I'm doing, make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you turn on those notifications. Make sure you leave a comment. Give it a thumbs up. Share it out. Just try to counterbalance this. Another great option is you can always join my locals community where I post all of my videos ad-free. The link to join my locals is in the description below. And yeah, thank you guys for your support. Let's read the article. Let's see. Seattle now has on its payroll a convicted pimp who once vowed to go to war with the city, a $150,000 street czar whose mission is to come up with alternatives to policing. Andre Taylor, who appeared in the documentary American Pimp about his life as Gorgeous Dre, is getting $12,500 a month for a year, along with offices in Seattle's Municipal Tower, according to the contract published by Publicola. It comes just a year after his organization, Not This Time, was paid $100,000 to sponsor a speaker series that was called Conversations with the Street. Taylor led one of the first rallies in Seattle after the police custody death of George Floyd in the Seattle Times. So not only is the city of Seattle paying $150,000 to a former pimp, and listen, whatever. I'm not going to make any comment on that. Like, they're paying $150,000 to a former pimp. They're also paying $150,000 to one of the people that's leading the George Floyd rallies. Now, if those rallies are peaceful and they're not looting and they're not rioting, and they're not hurting anyone, hey man, you got no beef from me. The First Amendment is absolute so far as I'm concerned. People should be able to protest and rally for whatever the flip they want. But I do find it odd and that someone who is literally leading these types of rallies, the ones that in places like Seattle tend to, let's just say, end badly. Don't want to be too incendiary. YouTube doesn't like my tone when I'm too incendiary. Let's just say they end badly. That he's literally getting paid by the government to advise them on policing. Let's keep going. He was later accused of trying to get millions from the city for militants who set up the controversial police-free Capitol Hill occupied protest, the CHOP or the Chaz. I think they should have kept it as the Chaz, but I understand why they changed it because, image, brand, darling. Don't just leave. Leave with something, he told activists in a city caught in a recording, telling them to demand $2 million to exit the site of much of the city's worst violence this year, the report said. They ignored his advice, the paper said, with one saying the money grab felt off. And this is the guy that they're paying $150,000 to. Now, do you think that Mayor Jenny Durkan is aware of this contractual obligation? I'm gonna bet that she is, because $150,000 on, it's not like the most money compared to what the overall city budget is, but it's like not like a small chunk of change. I mean, I know when I've worked for major organizations where I have fees that are very similar to that went right up to the very top, where there were very high level executives that knew about that arrangement. And I can't imagine that it would be much different here. I'm sure she knows about this. And the other thing I said too, how I responded to Jenny Durkan's tweet with this is their threats to defund Seattle are blatantly unlawful. How many people died in the CHOP over the summer when Jenny Durkan came out and said it's going to be a summer of love? In the CHOP. No, it wasn't a summer of love, Jenny. No, it wasn't. It hurt very real people, and they left a complete mess that the city of Seattle then has to pay for. Anyway, I digress. Some of those militants then accused him of betraying them too when he appeared at a press conference with the mayor to tell them to shut down the CHOP. The same day, he was given his 6-figure contract, and there it is. There it is, folks. This guy that the city of Seattle is paying suddenly was in favor of shutting down the CHOP as soon as they were paying him a ton of money. I don't know how the residents of Seattle are okay with this. Like, Seattle is not a cheap place to live by any stretch of the imagination. How are you okay with this guy getting your tax money? The new street czar justified the contract to KMO News as payment for his particular genius in a particular area, saying that he can talk to gang members, pimps, and prostitutes who won't sit down with anyone else. Now, listen, I actually think that is a really good point. I'm not opposed to this guy making money for the specialized knowledge that he has. I'm not. I simply question of whether he is the best person to actually offer alternatives to policing. But listen, if you have like specialized knowledge and you're using that knowledge for the greater good, then make your green, man. Like, I don't really care. I think that that's perfectly fine. Money at the end of the day, how I think about money anyway, is it's simply an exchange of value. It's not good, it's not bad. It's just an exchange of value. If I give you something that you consider to be valuable, whether that be my time, my advice, my support, whatever, you give me something that I consider valuable back. Now, that most of the time is money. It doesn't always have to be money, though. Maybe you do a barter. Maybe you do a trade. I mean, there are all sorts of different ways, but I think that the more you can think about money as kind of like a value exchange, you kind of take like some of the evilness out of the equation. Let's keep going. Black people as a whole have not been in a place to be compensated for their genius or their work for a very, very long time. Well, that's not true, dude. Like, this is a perfect example of this. You literally were a pimp. You were a pimp. And now you're being paid a 6-figure contract by the city of Seattle. It seems to me as though some might even say that's a position of privilege. Wouldn't you? I know a lot of people who would love a 6-figure contract for giving advice. Not too many people can go talk to gangbangers in their territory, then go talk to the government in their territory. That's actually legit. Taylor first found notoriety in Las Vegas, where he was sentenced in 2000 to more than 5 years in prison, serving little more than a year. And I'm not going to talk about the rest of this because I figure I would just give YouTube, even more reason to demonetize me than they already have. But you guys see where this is going. And again, listen, like, I have a friend that went to prison for a really long time for a crime he didn't commit, and now he's got a really, really good job in Manhattan. I don't begrudge people having dark, shady pasts and, going and, taking care of business and then getting out of jail and then going on to have careers. I absolutely believe there should be career options for people after they have committed crimes. Absolutely. It's the only way that rehabilitation makes any sense. And I'm also not opposed to this guy making money for his specialized knowledge. Again, it's a value transfer. If he has something that the city finds valuable, and it seems as though it actually could be a valuable commodity, then he should get paid for it. I have no issue with that. But when the mayor of Seattle is complaining about losing their federal funding after the Trump administration has designated them an anarchist zone, like, I'm sorry, you should be more careful about how you're spending your money. Stop doing segregated trainings. Maybe reconsider how you're positioning nonsense like this. Again, I think there could actually be a justification for things like this. I'm trying to be open-minded. But it just doesn't... Jenny, it's not a good look. It's not a good look, Jenny. Come on, do better. Girl, you know better. Why are you hiring pimps? Come on. All right, guys, I just thought that was kind of a fun little article. I'm going to classify this one as stupid news. If you'll notice, I have actually been trying to classify my videos a little bit more just to give you guys some sort of sense of what you're getting. I've got different categories. So I've got like good news that makes me happy, bad news that makes me sad, stupid news, stuff that kind of like makes me laugh and I like to make fun of. I got SJW crazy, I got rants and raves, I've got live conversations. So I'm trying to like categorize things so you guys know what you're getting into. That's all I've got for right now. I'll see you soon.